When you think about cybersecurity, who do you think is the most important person you should have on your team? Actually, yeah, it's not IT or the engineering team. It's the communications person. Yes, because they're the people who are going to get you out of the when it hits the fan. Yeah. All right. In this next segment, we talked to Mitch Mayne, who is one of the leading cybersecurity communicators, and he's going to tell us why communication preparation is all key for cybersecurity in businesses that don't want to kill their brands. Hey, Reb Risty here with REBLutionize Your Marketing, Your Business, Your Life. And I'm here with Mitch Mayne, who's going to talk about his life in cybersecurity as a marketer, as a non-technical person. How does this happen? And I'm super excited to talk to you, Mitch. You're really such a great energy. And but before we jump in, why don't you tell my audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
I would be happy to do that. That's probably the easiest question I'll get all day long. I am Mitch Mayne, and I am now just hired the Director of Threat Intelligence and Cybersecurity Research for Akamai Technologies. And that is new for those of you listening. It's just been a few weeks. So I would love to tell you more about my job, but I don't know anything yet. So and that's kind of where I'm based in San Francisco, and I kind of travel all over. Prior to that, I freelanced for a while, doing some communication and incident response. And prior to that, I was with IBM Security X-Force.
Yeah, wow. And you also had your own podcast. You were a journalist. You have a really...
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is how I found you.
You have such an interesting background. I love your answer to kind of what you do. You're a hybrid of who's both an incident responder and accomplished marketer of cybersecurity. That sounds loaded. What does that mean?
Well, I was always told that I was kind of a weirdo and a unicorn. I think unicorn is kind of a nice way, especially when you're saying it to me, of saying weirdo. But I didn't realize how unique it was until I actually left X-Force and went out and started to do my own thing. And it's like I was inundated with people who wanted to, get contracts with me and work with me. And it was an honor and a privilege. But the fact that I have come from kind of a marketing background where I understand the psychology behind what it takes to actually get your message across and cut through the noise and get yourself heard and be able to tell it like a succinct but compelling story. When it comes to incident response, we're talking about big companies that have been victims of ransomware, other kinds of cyber attacks. They need a communication element to that contains those same qualities. It's like you have to be factual, you have to be clear, but you also have to realize that you're talking to downstream victims, and you can tell your story, but don't ever blame the people who are also feeling the pinch. And you have to do it in a way that helps retain your customer base and helps save your brand image and save everything that you've built. I mean, a good technical response for a cybersecurity incident is going to make sure that you have systems when you come back to work. But a good communication response is actually going to make sure you still have a business to run once you get there.
And I love that you touch on that idea of the communications, but it's the storytelling. And, that's one of my favorite things, and the formula that we like to use with our clients and just our regular marketing. I can only imagine when it comes to cybersecurity, that just takes it up another level, because you are dealing with technical issues. Probably a lot of people's fear of happening. Yeah, that if they are a victim. How do you even start a communications plan for something like that?
Oh, wow. That's actually, so I came into X-Force, and I didn't really know much about cyber, and we can talk about how my entry happened in a few minutes, because it's a weird story too. One of the first things I was asked to do was to create the incident response plan for the entirety of IBM, which is, we're talking a multinational 400,000+ person company with a bunch of different areas. And it's like, how do you get that beast to sync up when there is an incident or a vulnerability or something happening in the world, like a WannaCry or a NotPetya, so we can communicate out to clients and to our peers and to, governmental agencies and share what we know. It really takes a lot of prep work. So I have like templates on holding statements and templates on press statements and templates on emails that would go out internally and emails that would go out to clients and templates for blogs that we would publish. The number one factor in creating a communication plan for something like this is always have a single source of truth, because that's the only way you're going to get ahead of the rumor mill. So what I would do was I created a document for the technical teams to fill out. And from that, I would take that document and create a communication seed document. And then I would forward that out to the people who needed to communicate it, the salespeople, the technical people, the blog writers. So everybody was working from the same messaging kit, and nobody had to like ad lib something. And if there was a question that they didn't know the answer to, they knew that they were not supposed to guess. Right. They were supposed to simply say, I don't know. So that's how you begin. And once you kind of have those templates in place, it's kind of, lather, rinse, repeat. Cybersecurity incidents often look very much the same in terms of our response. It's methodical, it's clear, there's a step-by-step process. So we have it in place, and I was able to bring that expertise once we had it for IBM out to our clients, which was a whole lot of fun. Right. Probably not for them because they were victims, but we also did proactive work, right? So before you actually are hacked, it's like, do you clients want to prepare too? So I get to help them.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I would think the proactive is really where people tend to not plan as well.
Yes.
Yes.
I have a fun story. You want to hear a fun story? So this is an incident that I worked with a client. They were prepping, right? They were doing proactive, and they were a big, well-known company, multinational, and they're like, we want you to do one specific thing, and that's get us ready for press, because if we have an incident, we want to be able to sing well. And I was happy to do it. Yeah, I'm like, smart idea, happy to do it. So I did some research on the web, and I discovered that the parent company had a bunch of subsidiaries, which is okay, we get that. But then I did a little more research, and I discovered that this person was married to this person over here, and this person was this person's cousin. And then there were some uncles and moms and dads. It was all everybody was related on the senior staff of all of these companies. So the first question that I wanted to know was like, you guys have a lot of intermarrying and little family relationships in the leadership of these companies. Who knew what when? And did anybody sell or trade stock as a result of the attack before you announced it? And they immediately shut off the interview. They're like, we don't want to do this, which was unfortunate, because if Mitch Mayne can find it, that some good journalist out there is going to have the same exact question right out of the gate. So I guess, was that a fun story? I'm not sure it was so fun. It was definitely interesting, but
so fun? They just shut it down and they didn't go any further. They
didn't go any further. Well, they came back later, and they were a little more prepared. But yeah, I mean, it's thinking like that. It's like the ability to bring in, and you would probably do this too, the thinking of a journalist. It's like, I want a good story, and my job is to sell papers. If I'm on CNN or whoever I'm working for at the time, it's like, I want to get readers, and I want meaty data. And if there's a story to be told that's a backstory that nobody wants to hear, that's going to be my favorite kind. So the questions from the press are not going to be friendly.
What would your recommendation be for maybe other similar clients or businesses out there? They've got the skeletons. They know they do. But is it better they work with you, figure it out, be prepared, or let the journalists let everybody else know about it? Yeah.
Well, it's a hot seat, right? It's like, I think that we owe it to ourselves when to be honest about our skeletons, and whether or not we divulge that, it's like, that's another story, right? But you have to be prepared for that question. You have to make sure that everybody has the same answer, because what you don't want to have happen is me to ask the CEO the question and him have a response, and then ask the president of 2 or 3 of these subsidiaries, and they all have, there's 3 more different responses. And then suddenly there becomes a conspiracy theory, and then that's the news story, and you completely lose control of the message that you're trying to quash the cybersecurity incident and get back to serving your customers. You've lost the game right there.
That's really how brands die, right? Is just bad communication, messaging, they don't prepare, and then they're hustling and it's too late. By the time that breaks, it's just too late. Yeah.
Yeah, and people appreciate honesty. So it's like even if you've got some
Yeah.
hiccups in the past
Yeah.
and they ask you about them, cough it up. Don't try to hide it. This is not we don't
No,
get the
we
luxury of
don't. We
hiding things in
don't.
the age of the internet.
Well, so I know you have an interesting story on how you got to where you are today. Would love if you could share that with my audience, because I think there's some inspiration in there too for those that are interested in what you do.
There is. Cybersecurity is that one of those industries that's really starving for talent. And we get so locked down as both people who are seeking jobs and people who are looking for people to fill jobs that, there needs to be a certain recipe. I was in an Uber earlier today, in fact, and I was talking to a software engineer who was between gigs. And he's like, "Oh, wow, you're in cybersecurity. What kind of engineering did you get your degree in?" And I was like, "I've never taken an engineering class in my life." So how I came in is I was working in marketing for IBM Security, and I was doing journalism on the side, which was really more my passion. And I got a phone call from the head of Xsource, the managing director of Xsource, which is our cyber unit. And he said, "You got to come work for me." And I'm like, "Dude, I have no idea what you do. All I know is it's like really kind of cool and a little bit Tom Clancy spy novel." And he's like, "No, no, no, no. I just read an article that you wrote, and it was about a central tenet of Islam and how to pass a bill in the Kentucky legislature," because I was covering religion and politics. And he's like, "You did it in 1,200 words. And not only did I understand it, it was actually interesting." He's like, "And I need somebody to be able to bring that kind of intellect into cyber who can tell a good story, who can understand the tough part of it, but then translate that into stuff the rest of the world can understand." So I took the job, and one of the first things I did was some congressional briefings, which were really fun and cool. And I was able to take all that technical data and our threat intelligence findings and some stories from incident response and put that into some documents that lawmakers can use to actually implement policy that's effective. Because if you hand them just a bunch of technical stuff, maybe they'll get it and maybe they won't. So that's how I ended up in cybersecurity. And the lesson is, for those of you out there who are interested in jumping into cyber, don't think you have to have an engineering degree. If you have passion and you have intelligence and you have a desire and you have the willingness to get some certifications or even pick up just a few classes, and you're a music major, bring it on. Come talk to us. We love people like that. One of our directors of the cyber range actually was a dance, like a ballet dancer, or like that was her major, and she ended up doing cyber range exercises. So
I love
creativity
that,
matters in this field.
I know a few people, they're kind of like on the IT side of cyber, and I think they just don't do a great job communicating. There's a lot of kind of fear-based, like you're gonna get locked out, you're gonna have to pay thousands of dollars, whatever, but there's no like story for that. Well, let's be proactive. Let's not wait till those things happen. And then the communication plan. I don't know many companies that have that communication plan. They are, if anything, I think of this kind of topics where people bury their heads in the sand because they just don't want to think about it.
Companies are getting better because now we're starting to get into the age where there's governmental requirements. It's like, and if you want any sort of cyber insurance, it's like that you need to show them that you have a plan. So there's definitely improvement. But I mean, even though I can show you that I have a plan, the question is, when was the last time you rehearsed it? Because if it's a year ago, I mean, do these people even work here anymore? Or is this contact information correct? I mean, just bare bones stuff could be out of date within 2 months.
No, that's a really good point.
It's important to rehearse it as well.
I work with little smaller companies, IT services who are providing this as part of their, business services. What's your recommendation for them? How can they better communicate what's going on today and like stay in front of what's happening?
The IT companies or the clients of the IT companies?
Both, but maybe talking to the IT companies specifically. I'd be interested to hear it.
Well, for a small IT company, a lot of times it's really hard to stay on top of what threat data there is out there in the world and like what is happening from a ransomware perspective or what's happening in the healthcare industries. There's a couple of good resources that I'm going to like tout shamelessly. One of them is the
Okay.
IBM X-Force Threat Intelligence Index. It's an annual report that comes out that says, here's, a year's worth of data that we have seen. Here are the trends. Here's what that means per industry and per geography. That's actually a really good source. And even though it comes out only once a year, that data is still very powerful. So it gives these smaller firms an edge when they go talk to their clients and say, we know that healthcare in Asia is under
Oh,
serious risk
okay.
of ransomware, for example. The other one that I would go to is Akamai Technologies because I work there now, and this is my area. We do things called SOTIs,
Uh-huh.
State of the Internet Reports, SOTI. And those are usually the same things, only they come out periodically throughout the year. So I think there's 6 slated for this year, and one of them will be the big one, right? That is the annual report, and the other one will be industry focused. Like
Okay.
it'll look at cloud, it will look at healthcare, it will look at retail and hospitality, and it gives you an idea of kind of what's happening in the world. So pick your source wisely and make sure it's somebody that is well known and well documented, because we don't publish things where we have to continue to guess. Like if there's anything
Got
that we're
it.
even questioning,
Okay.
it's like it doesn't go in the document. It's like we
Great.
won't
No,
publish
those
it.
are really
So it's
great
stuff that we
resources, and we'll
know.
make sure those get into the show notes for sure. Appreciate that. Maybe as we are wrapping up, then what's your advice to smaller businesses? They're like, I'm not IBM, I don't need all of this, but are they wrong? Are they right? What do they need?
Um, if you're a small business, you do need some sort of resiliency plan. And that is something that you can outsource and get help on. A lot of agencies will focus only on larger companies, but there are some niche firms out there that focus on small and medium sized business. It is important that you have a resiliency plan just from a technical perspective, but start thinking about how you're going to communicate that and who you want to communicate that. So who do you want
Mhm.
to put in front of the camera? Who do you want to be that voice to both the press and your customers when there is an incident? Because it's
Yeah.
not a matter of if,
Yeah.
it's a matter of when. It is going to happen. So better to be prepared rather than, to be caught, unprepared, which
Right.
is
Right.
a
No, I
scary
love that.
proposition in
I
today's
love
world.
that. One last question. Well, maybe. um, for those that are, I love that you have the marketing journalism background. You have someone on your team that's actually dance ballet. What if somebody is interested? They're like they are fascinated with cybersecurity, but yeah, they have not a non engineering degree or background. Where do they get started? Do you have any recommendations for that?
Well, it depends on what you want to do in cyber, and that's the other thing that you should think about if you're curious about cyber. There's a lot of unique areas out there. There's proactive
Huh,
hackers, which are red teams, right? Who go out there and will be hired by clients to say, "Hey, can you break into us? We think our security is pretty robust, so you can't get in, and
interesting.
you're paid to break into it."
Yeah.
Um, cool game, right? There's also the physical side of that. There's a lot of organizations that are like, our plant in, I don't know, in Los Angeles is locked down. There's no way anybody's getting in there. And so we actually have people who will try to get into physical locations, and 90% of the time they succeed. They clone badges. They, hitchhike on other people who are gaining
That's
access to the building. And
crazy.
so that's one
Like
area, is like
mom.
the proactive hacking type. The second area is the incident. I know, it's so
I
interesting, right? I mean,
bet.
the stories that come out of that are really cool. There's also incident response, which is what I did and do. It's that has to do with what happens when an incident actually occurs or preparing for that incident. And there's a technical side to that, right? Which is actually getting
Mhm.
the systems back up and running, looking at the forensics, trying to trace back who was first compromised and where did it happen, and maybe even who did it. And then there's the communication side of that. And then there's cyber ranges, there's threat intelligence. So there's
Okay.
at least 4 big buckets that you can look at. So decide which one you want to be interested in, and then find people on LinkedIn and just start sending emails and say, hey, interview me. I just want to interview you on threat
Yeah.
intelligence. Tell me what you know and how you got to be where you are, and start building that network. Because this is an industry, especially for those people who do not have the technical background, that is built on
Awesome.
recommendations,
I love
references,
it. I love
and
it.
networking.
All right, I do have one more question. What is this is our
Yes,
this is
fire
our
away.
new podcast question that we're asking. So you're the first one I'm asking. What is the best non-business advice you've ever gotten?
Oh, wow. The best non-business advice I've ever gotten. Well, the best piece of advice I think I ever got that's both business and non-business, was in a commencement ceremony. And it was a politician who wasn't as, let's see, didn't have as much, like ire on either side when they said this. So it was actually a good speech. And the advice was, people are going to tell you in life to work on your weaknesses, to get better at them. For me, that was math and science and the death of Excel sheets and things like that. People are going to tell you to get better at those things, and ignore that advice. Find what you do well and just continually make it better. There's going to be somebody else who's good at Excel, Mitch. So if you're a good writer and you can tell a good story, make that skill even stronger. Ignore the stuff that you suck at and just make your good stuff better. And that's where you're going to make a difference in the world.
I love that. I love that advice.
Been true
I'm the same. I'm more of the communication, the creative. Spreadsheets are not my thing, but I appreciate everybody who is good at it.
I still won't. Me too. Confession time. I still don't know Excel, and I absolutely refuse to learn it. I'm not going to learn that thing. I will take it to my grave, man. I will take my lack of skills to my grave.
Everybody, no Excel for Mitch. No Excel. Well, thank you so much, Mitch. I really appreciate your time. If somebody did want to get a hold of you or learn about your new company, what's the best way for them to do that?
We will include my LinkedIn profile. You can always find me on LinkedIn. I'm a pretty heavy user of social media, so hit me up there, and I'm happy to answer any questions and even point folks to the right direction. Like if they want to get into incident response or red teaming, awesome. I have a big network. I can also refer you out.
Yeah,
so
and that's
if I don't know the answer, I know somebody who will.
A few people, so I appreciate that. Well, thank you everybody for your time today. This is REBLutionize Your Marketing, Your Business, Your Life, and we also have a special workshop coming up in April talking about messaging, how to tell your story better. We're going to go over a 7-part framework that we use to help our clients better tell their stories, and we're doing that workshop April 23rd. You can check it out on our website, and we'll have in the show notes to sign up, and we look forward to having everybody there.